Welcome
You're
to Beginners Academy. Tonight's subject is sh- share was show and tell on Winter Field Day, which was a couple of days ago, and I expect several in our Zoom group to have something to share. And we're going to start off with Chris, VA3ECO, who really had a authentic Winter Field Day. So go ahead, Chris.
Well, I don't know. I saw some pictures of you getting ready, and there seemed to be some snow on the ground in Dothan, Alabama. So I got to
Well,
say
there was.
that's impressive for you too.
Yeah.
Winter all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little more wintry here. I guess you guys can see my picture there.
Yes.
Yeah, so a friend of mine's got this set up. It's about 20 miles out on the lake, around and about through islands and stuff. But there's actually an ice road that goes from my cabin to where he is. And this is a couple days before field day. My wife and I just drove out so that I could map it with my GPS because it's not hard following the ice road during the day. At night, it's a little bit tricky. So I ended up with the track on my GPS. And boy, when I came back on Saturday night, that was a good thing to happen because beautiful day here, a couple days before a field day. Field day rolled around, about 30, 40-mile-an-hour winds and wind just drifting like crazy. And it's got a wood stove in it. But the problem is,
No antenna.
well, we set the antennas up later. I never got pictures of the antennas. It killed me. I
Oh,
thought about it after we're tearing them down. I thought, oh, I know photographs. So we did a full G5RV on a 40-foot. We had those fiberglass mass sections like what Greg uses. You get them Army surplus, the green ones,
Uh-huh.
oh
4 foot
yeah.
ones, and we stacked
I
them
got a
all
bunch
up.
of them.
We put them on a pallet, and we had one of the the little tripods you got you for a small roof antenna, little galvanized steel
Yeah.
tripods. We had one of
Right.
those with a piece of 1 inch EMT on it, and slipped the fiberglass over that. Did it horizontally out about 40 feet on the ice and tilted the whole thing up and this howling wind and guided it real quick and did a G5RV, and it worked really well, I must say. Anyhow, our problem was, and how things got delayed was this rain cap. If you look at it, it's bent on one side. And guess which way the wind was blowing? Right in this way. So he fired up the wood stove and it just filled the place with smoke. And he couldn't get it drawing no matter what he did. And he's scratching his head. I'm scratching my head. I ended up climbing on a ladder and putting a shovel to block the wind. And all of a sudden, the wood stove started working wonderfully. So, what to do? Well, we had to get up higher on the ladder and get a screwdriver and take that whole cap off. So it was just a straight pipe on the wood stove. And then we could finally start winter field day. So we were like a 2 hour delay. And that's why Greg beat me.
Is
Should
that
have spun the building around.
Well,
Turn the
never,
well,
building.
never thought of that, Bill.
Oh,
see,
That's a good
I
thought.
wish I was there to
well,
help you.
but
Anyhow, I after getting through smoke inhalation, we got rocking and rolling eventually. Uh, it was so windy and cold. I thought these walls aren't very thick. I'm going to try doing my satellite through the wall. So here we are, struck out with SO50. Uh, International Space Station was doing a nice round, actually, right almost over top of us, even a bit to the north, which is nice because it gets out of range for some of the bulk of the people further south, a little quieter. And lo and behold, it worked. I was just flabbergasted. I don't think I've ever done space station on a field day ever. And this is the arrow antenna that a lot of you guys know about with an add-on. This is a little piece of wooden dowel, 5/8 wooden dowel, carved a little bit, fits into the end of an arrow antenna. And this is just a chunk of iron rebar tie wrapped to the wooden dowel. And that way, when you're set up, well, I'll show you later on, you can set it up on a tripod and it works wonderfully. So we're using two radios here, full duplex, 817 on the top, FT 857 on the bottom. Honestly, there's so much feedback with this antenna because I wasn't using filters and stuff that I probably should have. I could not hear myself anyhow. So do you need to go full duplex? I've always said, yeah, you do.
Well,
Greg has always said, well, I don't know if you do, but now I'm starting to
well,
lean towards Greg's thinking that maybe you don't need full duplex, that if you know you're on frequency, especially with an FM, it's pretty easy. Simplex
well,
might not be a bad idea.
well, if you can hear the set really good, you're,
Yeah.
short of other interference, you're probably going to get in there. So,
Yeah. Yeah. My problem is I was causing my interference to the point where the full duplex really didn't pan out, other than the fact that I took these two radios and I've got a home satellite station and I hooked it up on that. And those antennas are 8 feet apart, and got all my Dopplers figured out and my frequencies right at home ahead of field day. But for field day itself, I don't know. Might go simplex next year. We'll see. And there we are, tuning away. Now what you see here is holes in the floor for fishing. So we may not have done well as Greg, but we caught more fish than Greg.
true.
This is regular, I think, PSK 31. So I'm using a Panasonic Toughbook. And yeah, running digital. And we got a logger running here. I'll have a better picture of that later on. So I'm running just the 857 by itself.
Right.
The G5 RV is just outside the wall here, outside.
Why did you say you needed duplex? I'm a little confused. You mentioned about duplex. Like, why would you need duplex for something like that? You said you were getting feedback from where?
Well, the antenna itself, so it's VHF up, UHF down, or vice versa.
Right.
Because the antennas, like there's the driven element for the UHF,
Right.
and there's a driven element for the VHF, and being only 10 or 12 inches apart,
Oh,
they feed back to each other. Now, in an ideal situation on a satellite, you can hear yourself, especially on the linears. You know you're on your frequency. In other words, you listen for your voice being correct, and you can fine tune it. Especially one of the older ones like A07 will drift from day to day. So you might be right on frequency one day, and you'd be sounding like Donald Duck the next day.
really?
And
Is that the Doppler effect that you get when a train passes through?
that's another thing as well. On top of that,
Yeah.
and the computer program that's running in the background here handles the Doppler.
Now, when you have a
In fact,
Doppler,
there's the Doppler correction right there behind my head.
Is that affecting the audio or the frequency?
Well, both. Yeah, the frequency of the audio. Yeah.
The frequency of the audio, but it doesn't. The frequency is the frequency. You're
Well,
getting
on
Yeah.
FM, like I know what you're saying. On FM, not a big deal as long as you're within,
Yeah.
enough for the decoder to work inside the FM circuitry. But on a upper sideband, lower sideband situation, then the frequency directly affects the audio, and you can get, 2,000 hertz out. It goes beyond either Darth Vader going low or Donald Duck going high to the point the other person can't follow you. So it's good form to have your frequency correct, so that what comes out of your mouth is the same frequency what comes in your ears, and you can very quickly correct it on the keyboard even as you're speaking,
right.
over and above the Doppler. Now some guys will do the Doppler that way too. They'll actually take these VFO knobs and crank them around
Yeah.
as the satellite's passing and maintain the Doppler and the frequency shift of the satellite themselves. It takes great dexterity, more dexterity than I've got. I use it, but those are all really good satellite questions. And as far as the Doppler and all the frequency stuff, what I was saying more pertains to the linear ones. The FM ones aren't so critical. You can pre-program you've done it, Greg, about 4 or 5 frequencies in your HT.
Right.
And you can just jump through the 15-20 minute pass. You can sort of jump from frequency to frequency, and you can kind of tell by the noise of the receive when it's need to click to the next. I think you go about 5 megahertz at a time, don't you, Greg? Jump from one to the next. And
well, it's not in megahertz. It would be
kilohertz,
5
rather.
kilohertz, something like
Kilohertz,
that.
right? Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, so you can jump from one to the next frequency, and you can actually pretty easily do the Doppler thing just by clicking the knob on your HT. So the FMs are much simpler. The problem is there's only one channel, so everyone's on there together. And FM is the biggest fish wins, right? So if someone's got 50 watts and you've got 10 watts, then you ain't being heard. But there's ways around that. Like when we did Winter Field Day last year at the Pine Log Forest, we waited till the satellite got out over the Gulf, and Frank, myself, and Jim Nelson picked it up with a conversation with someone in Central America for our Winter Field Day bonus points for that day. So there's tricks even with the FM. If they are busy, wait till, especially where you guys are, you could wait till it heads south or east and no one else is around hardly, and it quietens down and you can have a decent conversation with someone towards the end of its path. So the FMs are fun. I'm kind of a linear guy, but after playing around with this ISS, maybe I'll try FM some more. Anyhow, that's the satellite thing. Any other questions on satellites? Anyone?
No, you're educating me. Okay, so the spinning satellites are that's a poor man's satellite, right?
Well, they're all spinning to keep themselves oriented right, but they usually have the antennas in such a fashion that the spin doesn't affect the radio quality. But they're heading over pretty fast. The ISS is probably one of the lowest ones. Its footprint is quite a bit smaller.
Yeah.
On a couple slides ahead, we'll look at the one I did on the Sunday, and it's got quite a footprint. We'll look at that in a bit.
Well, Chris, you might explain the motivation to do satellite during Winter Field Day.
Yeah, so here we are. Make a satellite FM contact. It multiplies all your points by 2. And if you do a linear one, it multiplies all your points. Come on, camera. There we go. By 3. So if you get one of each, you're multiplying all the points you got times 5 for getting 2 satellite QSOs that are like 30-second long, right? If that. So it's just something out there to kind of get people to try new stuff. And the satellite thing, I did that for a dog's age. I've got it's taped up. I can't show you. I got a list of satellite folks I talked to. It's I just got probably 100 people on that list. You know what they're up to, what their hobbies are, and stuff. And I just put it on the wall because I can never remember whose call sign is what. But it's quite a community, quite a group. It's fun. I would say it's something to look at. It's not as hard as you think. So there we go. 4 walleye. Lake of the Woods.
Lake of the Woods. Oh man, that's awesome.
So a third of it's in Minnesota.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a big honking lake. So this is the Sunday. So this is my antenna for Sunday. Is the old trusty hamstick on the back corner of the car. And I've talked about this before. This is a chunk of 2-inch aluminum that when your tailgate goes up, I put some sheet metal screws and then I just kind of bent it so that the antenna is pointing up, not back. And then this is the SO239. No, it's not even SO239. Anyhow, it's a 3/8 by 24 CB radio mount that the hamstick likes to use. And you can pick these things up at a truck stop for like $10, right?
Yeah.
And because the screws are going inside when the tailgate's up, that when I go to sell the car, no one's going to be looking inside there for the holes, right? So it's a very good way to mount your antenna. And then I just run the cable in through the weather stripping underneath the carpeting in the back seat, and it comes up by the front seat. So when my wife's driving, I can do ham radio. And I just use RG8X, the what is that, 1/4-inch diameter stuff. And it works good on all the bands.
You don't use RG213, the big stuff, huh?
The problem is getting through the weather strip, and you can see the crack. And most cars have a crack about that big, so it gets a little bit squished, but 213 would get too squished.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Yeah, 213.
So what you could do is you could switch over to 213 once you're inside the car.
Yeah.
But really, when you're talking, especially with HF, it's like 10 feet from there to the front seat.
Yeah,
If you
you're
do the math,
negligible loss.
it's not, losses are minimal. So this is a 20-meter stick, and I've got 15 and 10 and 80s and whatnot. It's just a matter of stopping the car and putting them on. It works wonderfully. I've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
Different cars.
Now with that 20-meter stick, you can talk around the world on that, huh?
Yeah. Now comparing that to a full length whip, which I do have, and I was actually using that the day before at the ice shack. Not a huge difference. So that a ham stick's about 8 feet, and the quarter wave on 20 meters, as you know, is about 18 or 19 feet. So your losses aren't that great with the ham stick. It's a few dB down from a full length whip, but not enough to really worry that much about. So because it was, I was lazy, I just put that one up instead of the full whip. So here's the satellite setup again, and this is a linear sat. Again, two radios. This is the transmit radio. There's the receive radio. It was Greg's radio, as a matter of fact. And headphones is kind of important. I was getting a lot of bad audio reports. They said, "Oh, I can hear you, but can't make out what you're saying." And I thought, yeah, I'm getting feedback. I'm trying to dial this frequency. I got my head kind of halfway in the car, and I thought, I'm getting this into my microphone. So here's my microphone here that I'm holding, and I'm figuring, oh, no wonder I'm getting feedback. So I grabbed my headphones, plugged them in, and a lot better success. Let's go to the next slide. Actually, let's go back to this slide. This is RS-44, our Russian satellite. There it is there, RS-44. This is the footprint of this satellite. It's actually close to what they call a medium Earth orbit, an MEO, as opposed to an LEO, low Earth orbit. And the glowing area here is the footprint of that satellite at this point in time. So I caught him when he was down about here and worked an American fellow down here. But look at the footprint of this thing. You could pick that up from Alberta into Spain and almost into France at that point in time. His height is 1,500 kilometers up. That's a good height. In fact, right now, they say this one's at a point in its orbit where the passes over the Atlantic are really high. They say if you want to do DX, this is the one. I'm at this white cross here, by the way. I have worked into Germany and France on this particular satellite. This is a really made by Russia, really good audio. Did you get that? Which one did you work, Greg, by the way? You got a linear on satellite.
RS-44.
That one there. Isn't it sweet, eh? It's a nice satellite. The audio is good. The power is good.
Well, you can count on the Russians.
You count on the Russians.
That's right.
Those damn Sputnik people, eh? So that's just to show you what you can do on satellite, and it's a good one. So that's what I was talking about. The counterbalance. I slide this up and down so that the friction on the tripod is almost nothing. So I can actually tilt it and move it without having to unlock it and stuff, and it'll sort of stay put when I let it go. So I'll flip this thing to where I think the satellite is, and bingo bango, I start to hear them. I fine tune it, and away we go. There's where I was pointing roughly to get the contact. This is an interesting thing here, and it's kind of a bit destroyed because it was out in the rain in Georgia with Greg 2 years before, and it got torn up. Is a little compass rose. Before I get started, I checked to see which way south and north, and I put it on the ground, and I put one leg of the tripod on it so it doesn't blow away in the wind. And I've got actually the degrees marked in there. They're hard to tell with felt pen. And that way on my software, when it tells me where this satellite is, let's jump back to it. right there, 62 degrees, 17 degrees up. Well, the up and down, you have to kind of guess yourself. But 62, I simply go look at that little compass rose and bingo, bango, bongo. So if you don't have a buddy there with a compass to say, yeah, point over there, this thing does the job. And as you can see, two cables coming in, UHF and VHF, and that's the satellite. This is getting back to HF, just doing regular contacts. Me and the thing, doing a selfie. I don't do many selfies, so I'm not really good at it. Yeah, so there, I put the radio down on the chair here because really a lot of the tuning is done on digital with the laptop. And this is the program I use for logging. It's called N1MM, and it also runs in conjunction with FL Digi, which is a very popular PSK31, RTTY, Olivia, all those other modes. And you can put your macros in here, which I had set up previously. Actually, the same macros I think we used in Georgia, Greg. I just transferred them over to this computer. And I do my CQ, my winter field day information, back to you, goodbye, bye, and QRZ. Like if I'm running the frequency, I'll say goodbye with this one. If I'm searching and pouncing, as Greg mentioned before, I'll use this one. So it's really convenient. You click on the guy's call sign, bang, it goes up here automatic. He says his class, you hover your mouse over it, click it, it goes into the next box. And his location, click on it, goes into the next box. You hit the enter button, logged. You don't hit the enter button, you lose the log. And I lost North Florida that way. And I was so mad at myself. I thought, oh, I got North Florida. I can tell the guys, maybe they know him. And I got a next contact and I'd forgotten to hit the enter button. And I overrode it with the next call. So no North Florida for Chris. I was so mad at myself. Here's some stats. Don't want to get too boring. This is the hour of the day. The first 2 hours was fighting with that damn chimney. You can see one contact total. And then it started to pick up. This was a bunch of guys in Kenora. We prearranged. We said, we'll call you on the local repeater and set something up. We did 80 meters through to 2 meters with three or four of them. And got a bunch of contacts there. And the last hour of Sunday was 24 contacts. That was a lot of people come on in the last minute and they get desperate, and a lot of action in the last dying minutes of the contest. Here's a graphical view of the hours. So that's Saturday up to here, and this is Sunday over here. This is where I was working the guys on the different bands. You can see the band, there's the different colors. And the last hour I stuck on 20 meters, 14 megahertz, and did really well. I actually got a little bit of a run going finally. Otherwise I was searching and pouncing almost the whole field day. That's kind of complicated. And there's a graphical picture of the map showing who I managed to get that day. I mean, I got Alaska, which was quite cool. And, he was on strong, Greg. If you'd been in the right place at the right time, I think you would have got him. I think
I heard him on Sunday on 10 meters, and
yeah,
and
I think that might have been 10 that I got him, if not mistaken.
Yeah, but I didn't snag him, unfortunately. So
I'd worked him and I was punching it in, and all of a sudden I see this AK, and I'm going, AK? Oh, that's Alaska, jumping, and that's my field day. Anyone got any questions on all that? Kind of a long presentation, longer than I thought I was going to do.
Well, I think that's neat. Was it fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially catching the fish.
Yeah.
Well, we'd be right in the middle of something, and he'd helping with the logging and stuff. Oh, gotta go, because he had the lines, with the spring-loaded lines set up, and all of a sudden you could see the rod bounce down and pulling up the thing and pulls out. Some of them were like 4 pounds or something like that, like way too big for our side of the border. And He's got to go back in the hole, and then he'd come back and work the radios with me. So it was, yeah, it was interesting though.
Well, thanks for sharing. Well,